What's up, everyone? Kane here, Captain of the Day's Pirates. Double dipping on the upload today. If you've seen the news, the sim has been updated with OP10. I'm pretty excited to get into some gameplay on it. For the West, it is not even a formal March release date yet. At least I just went on the English website. It just said March 2025. It did not have a date to my knowledge. So correct me if I'm wrong, please. However, it is already out in the East. It is now updated on the sim for the East queues. I want to do some testing with some of the cards that are coming out and some content around that. But I figure this is get a little bit ahead of the video that I've been putting out right before the set comes out. Maybe I'll do a more in-depth review of winning deck lists because there's only a few, right? It's earlier in the format for the East players as well. It's only came out in the past few weeks, less than a month old as far as I know or remember. Um, but I have some cards here that we'll kind of go through as far as kind of the ones that I think and expect to see and list and the cards that I want to personally test out. And then we'll go through the top decks that have been reported so far. I do know that One Piece top decks is not entirely encompassing. I haven't double checked what's on there. So I know there's some other lists that probably won't be reported there. But just kind of quickly touch on it as I'm wrapping up and as you guys jump into the sim today and start testing your OP10 stuff. First of all, Sanji is a punk hazard, 3 cost, 3K character, 3K power character with 1K counter. It says during your turn, you get plus 3,000 power. So that means when you play it for 3, and then your next turn, it's a 6K swinger into your opponent, which is very good tempo, right? For no down investment. And then when your opponent KOs it, you draw a card. Replaces itself, it threatens, it's searchable. Very interesting. Some people are running this over Zoro Juro in some of the East lists I've seen. Very interesting. I kind of expect a mix of both, or we'll talk some more about why they're moving away from Zoro Juro and maybe into some other things as far as ramp goes. So we'll talk about that as well. But just a very solid threat, kind of a funny, good alt art because it's Sanji and Nami's body. Um, she's covered up, so hopefully it won't get too much tax on being an alt art. So we'll see, but very solid threat, very solid curve, smoother, kind of like we've been using Yasop, kind of helps you get through the mid game a little bit. Tony Chopper is at a very simple level. It's a 2K. It's a Straw Hat searchable 2K, so we gotta at least look at it. It is a 4 cost, 4K power, Punk Hazard, Straw Hat, 2K counter blocker. And then it says on your opponent's turn, it's a 6K power plus 2K power. So 4 plus 2 is 6. So some people are kind of liking this over OPO7 Sanji, which might be reassuring because OPO7 Sanji is kind of creeping up in price. I think $7, $8. I'm gonna have a budget video coming out pretty soon here as far as like a budget RP Luffy deck list option. So if you don't have OPO7 Sanjis or ST17 Usohachis, this Tony Chopper is an excellent option and might just be better than depending on your meta and what you're seeing, might be better than OPO7 Sanjis in some scenarios as well. On this card, I'm not so sure will be relevant, but I kind of wanted to bring it up because of the card that's going to be brought up in the purple cards. This is another counter that's 2 cost. It says a plus 3K power during this battle, and then gives an opponent minus 2K for this turn. So it could be a 5K swing in a single combat, or you could plus 3 out of one and minus something else. Just kind of an interesting option. Again, I don't necessarily think we'll play it. But it is a card that is available to us now, and there's a Rosinante that if you're not familiar with already, you'll see in a minute that might up the make this a more valid edition potentially. What is an absolute valid addition is Divine Departure. This is the AA for it. I should have mentioned this is the AA Sanji. I think I did. The Divine Departure. It can be it's a 1 cost event on base level, and then it's a if you use it as an activate main, you rest an additional 5 Don, so that's 6 total Don to KO a 8K power or less, and then counter up to one of your leaders gain plus 3K power during this turn. So very just flexible, strong option. Um, to that end, it's a counter that's plus 3k power. It's kind of like a guard point that also can remove as big as a jack. And if you're using Yasop, it can be on your 7 down turn. You put a down on Yasop, swing, you KO. If they won't have a 9k power yet, but if they did, that'd be something you'd be able to remove, which is pretty exceptional. And then again with the Rosinante, I mean, it has some event synergy we'll get to in just a moment. Um, it just also ups the validity of this being an addition alongside our Gum Gum Giants, maybe replacing Radical Beams, or some lists are running both. Some lists are running up to 10 counter events, which is very interesting, something I'll be testing as well. Gum UFO, Martyr, if you're seeing this, I told you this is an ST21 card. I was wrong. It's an OP10 card. Maybe that's why it doesn't attach the rested down to our conversation. But it is a 2-cost main event. Give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 4k power. Then, if you have 2 or less life, give a character or a leader plus 1k power. I was thinking that this was the ST21 card when I was talking to Martyr, so I was thinking that it should have given Arrested Don if you have 2 or less life. Maybe that's too powerful, but Boa ST17 blocker does it, so like, come on. But it's still pretty solid swing. It can help you remove things. It lets Divine Departure remove a 12k. That's cool. It lets, Newgate remove a 7k. A lot of opportunity there. Again, if you're at Arrested Down, it'd be even cooler. It does have a KO up to one of your, or a trigger KO up to one of your opponent's characters 3k or less. That's also kind of nice. You can snipe a blocker or searcher at some point. But it's searchable for our Straw Hats. So that is the kind of notable piece. It's more of like a searchable Fire Fist if you're familiar. But again, maybe not quite enough to make the list. I want to do some testing with like a removal package, and if that's the case, this might be more valid. So now that's the end of the red cards that I brought up. I mean, there are some other things, but it's more punk hazard driven for Caesar Clown is getting a leader. So let's move on to our purple. Rosinante, 5 cost, 6k, 1k counter. On play, you may trash one event from your hand to draw 2 cards. So it's that recycling ability. If you got some counters in hand, this is what I was alluding to earlier with the Sanji. Some people are replacing Zoro with Sanji and then playing ramp events to make like eight or so ramp between Mr. 2 and 4 ramp events. And then when you get into the later game, you pitch those ramp events to Rosinante to get more value out of those cards. And then in addition to that cycling effect, which is great, at end of turn, if you have 7 or more Don on your field, activate 2. So it also gives you 2 more Don to counter out with between your Giants, your Divine Departures, your Radical Beams, your 10-layer Igloo, your I want to play Slow Beam Sword again. I love that card. I think this allows you to be able to do that potentially. A very nice alt art as well. Um, but this is going to be a very interesting build path. I do see some decks that are leaning into just basically being straight rush, about 10 or so counter events in this Rosinante, and then Sanji even to kind of smooth out the early game. Very interesting options. I think our RP Luffy meta calls become so powerful. I think this is a meta busting leader. If you really get a read for your locals and who you're very rather likely to see, obviously you can't be 100%. Some people play off meta every once in a while or whatever, but we get some very cool toys. Speaking of a very interesting ramp option, it is a 5 down event, which is scary, don't get me wrong, but hear me out here. Main, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost 5 or less, then add up to one of your Don and set it as active. It's a on tempo, it's like a 5 cost Sanji almost, that also ramps you. Obviously, it's an event, it has no counter, again, my whole vendetta against these events has been when you draw it at 10 Don, it's not going to be as useful as it could be, and it has no counter. But removing a 5 cost is always kind of good, right? Right? So I'm intrigued. That's what I'll say. I'm intrigued. So we'll see where this lands. But again, in the late game, if you got a Rosinante, if you're playing 4 Rosinante and 2 God Threads, In the late game, you can kind of play around, pitching it or just using it as removal. Very good, I think. That's everything that I have highlighted from like a new card perspective. There is this Don Quixote package of purple cards because a sugar red purple leader is coming. I'll pull up that leader just to kind of highlight it real quick. Pretty interesting. Not something that I'll probably be toying with too much. Um, but it's like a red purple leader that cares about countering. You can pause it and read it. I'm not going to read the whole effect. But there's a whole Don Quixote purple package that some people are saying is probably just better for green purple Dofi than sugar, but I don't care either way. We'll see what happens. Um, but there are some other cards that you could kind of toy with a Don Quixote package. I didn't feel it was necessary to go through that entire list of cards, but you can check out some of those. A couple alt arts that might be relevant to us. Actually, definitely ST17 Usohachi. If you don't like that the normal ones are $8, maybe you'll pay a ton for these SPs. I know I will. Uh, it's just ST17 Usohachi, a very nice alt art. And I'll be trying to track down 4 of them personally. I love these SPs in general, but these like I call them scenic SPs. I don't know what's proper, but also definitely less played for us. Definitely more of a Shanks card in general. That's something that again I've been talking about removal package. Might be toying with a little bit. I think this card's gonna look amazing in person. I haven't seen it yet, but the 7 cost Newgate's also getting an SP, very scenic with the entire crew there. But that's all the cards from that perspective that I think will be relevant to kind of RP Luffy and what we'll be doing. Kind of just drag over into top decks here. There are 3 RP Luffy lists that kind of first place different store battles and fest events, probably 5-0s, 6-0s. I haven't looked at these lists specifically yet, so let's run through them real quick. This was the Vietnam first place list. So they're on 4 queens, 2 laws. That's a card again I've been really wanting to kind of toy in. Oh, I should have preloaded some of these. Let me go ahead because this is from. Oh wait, no, this is I don't know. Um, 2 kids. I have been seeing some people cutting down on those or being on less of those. 4 Sanjis, 4 Sohachis, 2 Onamis. Personally, don't love it, but that's fine. 2 Luffys, 4 Namis. 1 Shanks, 1 of each Shanks. Interesting. If you see them in the right matchups, they can do a lot. 1 Jambe. Are they on Rosinante? No, okay. But they are on 4 Giant, 1 Divine Departure. So a lot of one-ofs, a lot of non-searchable one-ofs. I don't particularly love it, but they won their event, so hey, you got to kind of give into it for that. With the amount of cycling that you do have, I suppose you just pitch anytime you don't want the Shanks or whatever. It's just kind of get rid of it. But you would think a little bit more consistency through the other threats may have been nice. Um, but so let's go ahead and cruise on to one more here. So this was a 5-0 flagship win. I think this list may have been floating around the Discord if it's the one I'm thinking of, and I don't think it is. 2 queens, 4 kids, 4 Zoros, 1 Franasoke. I'm on that right now. 4 Clays, 4 Osuhachis, 4 Onamis. I guess it's searchable. I don't love that switch, but to each their own. 4 Luffys, 2 Sanjis, 2 Laws, 3 Choppers. So that's what Usohachis. So it is 11 2Ks. Nope, 12 2Ks. 12 2Ks. 4 Gum Giants, 4 Shanks. I do like if you're gonna play Shanks being up on 2Ks. Full 12 is great. I've been trying to toy with like 11 or so in my list where I'm trying to drive through Shanks a little bit more. But yeah, just a lot of cycling. They're kids. No new gates, just have Shanks instead. And they cruise through till they're 4-0 or 5-0, so excellent for them. I hope one of these lists is the list that I'm thinking of with the Rosanates. Maybe I'll do a quick cut when I go grab that list and pull it up here. Yeah, so I don't think this is it either. 4 Namis, 4 Newgates, 2 Dragons, 2 of the Choppers, 2 of these Rayleighs. I do think very interesting complement to Queen. I do kind of want to test some things like this as well. I'm more interested in Rayleigh than Onami, kind of. To be able to play it more aggressively early, I think is more beneficial to us. Zoro's, Clay, Sanjis, 4 Luffy's, 2 Sanjis, 4 Osuhachis, 4 Giants, 2 Rogers, and no Gear 5. It's very interesting. Sorry, I had a cough. Yeah, so this isn't it either, actually. I was kind of thinking of. So actually, give me just 1 second. We'll cut over to that, and then we'll wrap up with that last. Found it. So I think this 5-0'd or it won a store event or something. It's just also absolutely fucking beautiful, so kind of wanted to pull it up. It is 4 Namis, 4 SP Zorojuros, 4 SP Usohachis here, 4 Mr. Twos, 4 SP Queens, only 3 Rosinantes, 4 Rosinantes, but only 3 Slacker. No, 4 Rosinantes, 4 Sanjis, 4 Dragons. And this is also the 2K Sanji, just for people listening. Uh, eight eight cost 4 Dragons, 4 9 cost Luffy's, 4 10 cost Shanks, and then uh, that is 40 cards because that is 10 four ofs, and then it is uh 3 Radical Beams Premium Collection, 3 of the Alt Art Divine Departures, and then 4 Gum Gum Giants. So I think this list is probably smooth as can be, or very fun to play and run down people. Again, the resources to play against Dofi might be a little bit stretched thin. My also understanding with this meta and what the East has done with it has slowed down a little bit, even though Dofi is still an absolute menace to society. This list is, I know, probably a pretty decent starting point, or one of the first lists I'll probably test in OP10 just to get some playing with Rosinante, and seeing what other people are playing. I imagine um, a lot of people will be testing different things, but at some point I am gonna hop on the East ranked sim as that does get updated as well. So we'll see what people are playing at the higher levels there too. I mean, I know again it's not, the end all be all, but the sim just got updated today. Go out there and play some stuff. Let's see what you got. Hit me in the Days Pirates Discord with anything you're having some fun with, and we'll start poking around at some lists there as well. So if you want to see some more RP Luffy content, please, we're closing in on 500 subscribers. I want to get to 1,000 because that's for ad revenue actually. But 500 is an amazing benchmark. Maybe do like a small celebration stream or something if you guys would like to do that. Um, but yeah, OP10's on the sim. Let's see what you're cooking up.